I promised to do this in 10 minutes, so I have to hurry up. My name is Kammermeier, and I will give you a short insight about the vacuum challenges of Hyperloop. So, is there a challenge at all? We know the vacuum for long. So, and I'm working in the vacuum company that basically is the oldest in the world. Here on the left side, you see LEYBOLD. This is around 1850. On the right side, you see a very famous, experiment where 16 horses were not able to pull apart two semispheres that have been evacuated before. So vacuum is known for long, and we already provide vacuum. You've heard this before for the Hyperloop side and for the Toulouse side. So where are the challenges? So there are some typical common challenges. Of course, you need cooling water, electricity. You have to think about serviceability, logistic, etc. So, but this is not so particular for the Hyperloop. So, of course, you have to have some resistivity to dust, humidity, water, and the ambient conditions. And let's stay with the ambient conditions a little bit. Think of a Hyperloop tube, 10 kilometers, 5 meters in diameter, and there's a pretty warm day, 40 degrees, close to 100% relative humidity. That's extreme, okay, but that's for tutorial courses reasons. And when you vent this, you will have about 200,000 cubic meters that go into this tube of humid air. And then let's think you do the maintenance, and then when you want to finish, it's already night, the temperature goes down, and this means there will be a condensation of up to 9 tons of water inside your tube. So what does this mean? When you do the next pump down, you will have a problem. So here on the lower left, you see a pump down curve, pressure over time. The black curve, that's a dry pump down. If you have so much water in your pipe, you will have a problem because you can pump air, you can pump water vapor, but you cannot pump liquid water. This has to be evaporated, and this takes time. So you will see rather a curve like this one here, where you have some equalization of evaporation rate and the pumping speed. So in total, this can cost you a lot of energy. So up to 30% in this case to pump down this pipe again. Okay. Here you see what can happen if you do it the wrong way, if there's a lot of water involved. On the left side, you see a shiny screw pump. On the right side, you see what can happen if there's too much water vapor involved, because most pumps, they have a kind of water vapor tolerance. This means you can just pump water vapor up to a certain pressure. So let's think about dust. So normally, there's a common rule of thumb that below 100 millibar, hardly anything moves. So this is not true. Let's look at our neighbor planet. So there we have an atmosphere of about 6 millibar, and by now we've learned helicopters can fly there, and we can even have dust storms over the whole planet. So dust will be an issue for Hyperloop. Now let's talk about pressure distribution. So the gas velocity is finite. So this means in a normal vacuum chamber, you do not really notice this, because if there's a leak, then the pressure will rise and you have to look for the leak. A Hyperloop, due to its enormous size, leaks will become more local. So you might have a leak on the one side of your Hyperloop, and you might not notice this on the other side of your Hyperloop, at least for some time. So the impact is time dependent. This is very unusual for vacuum chambers. And this also affects the spacing of your pumping speed. So we did some time ago a simulation of a 160 kilometer Hyperloop track. So the black bars should be sections. And we put 16 pump stations there and some rather homogeneous leak rate, which is penetrating into the Hyperloop. And then we calculated the pressure distribution. Here in this polar plot, on the y-axis, you see the pressure in millibar, and you see you get a nice circular pressure distribution, very homogeneously, very good. What happens if a pump system fails? Our pump systems don't fail, but maybe. Okay. So one pump system fails. Of course, the pressure level shifts, but you still see it's rather a circular pressure distribution. So, and if the remaining pump stations can compensate the pumping speed of this one failure, then basically you will shrink the red circle to the black circles, and again you will have very comparable operation conditions for your vacuum, for your Hyperloop. So let's do this with 4 pump stations. So already you see there's a 4-fold symmetry on the pressure distribution. You will have a pressure deviation of about 10% along the track. So this is something your Hyperloop pod has to cope with. Then let's think of a failure of one pump system. Of course, there's a shift in the operation pressure, but you also see that the deviation rises up to 25%. This means that maybe your remaining pump stations can compensate the pumping speed, but they cannot compensate the 25%. These 25% will remain. Okay, the Hyperloop dilemma, customer requirements. So the customer wants a fast pump down, quick, because he wants to return quickly to the operation again, which means a high power demand. Of course, he wants a low energy consumption, a low cost of ownership, means a low power demand. Of course, the vacuum solution has to be cheap. But if we want to have a fast pump down, we need a lot of pumping speed, so it means a big invest. But of course, low energy consumption is needed at the operation point. If you have a low leak rate, then you don't need a lot of pumping speed at the low operation point. So there are a lot of conflicting interests where we have to think about. Let me give an example. This pump system here can pump down a 1 kilometer tube with a diameter of 5 meters in about 12 hours, down to 1 millibar. The energy consumptions for this is about 1.7 megawatt hours. If you are at 1 millibar, you can optimize the pump system. You can basically shut down a lot of pumps, and your energy consumption for 12 hours is then just 656 kilowatt hours, roughly a third of what you need for the pump down. And still you can afford a leakage up to 600 SLM. Now think of the pot. The pot is coming, and there will be a pressure peak, of course. So if you have such an optimized pump system, a lot depends on how big is the pressure peak. Because if it's too high, your pump system will slow down. Then your optimized pump system is, again, not the best one. So, and when the pump system slows down, it has to re-accelerate again. But when does the next pot come? So this means all this has to be taken into account for the layout of a vacuum system for a Hyperloop. So future systems also have to take this pressure fluctuations into account. So finally, some take-home messages. There are many common challenges for the Hyperloop system, like dust or condensation. Due to its size, the Hyperloop will be exposed to ambient conditions, unlike other chambers, which are in the lab, for example. The impact of leaks will be time-dependent and a local effect will be there. The sensitivity to pressure fluctuations will basically determine the spacing of your pumping stations. And the energy-efficient layout, this is everything but trivial. We need a lot of input from you, how to do the best layout with this. Thank you for listening.